Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everyone joining us from different parts of the world. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for everyone watching later. This is the final day of Font Fashion Week. We have lots of new typefaces coming. And today's presentation, I'm really happy to be chatting with Henning about his new typeface, which I don't agree with the name of because I love it. It's such a fun typeface, the poor thing. But it's really cool. You will see, you will see. So it's a fun design. I really like it. I'm looking forward to hear, the story of how it came to be. And we come back and we do the Q&A. Just a reminder for everyone, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. And yeah, thank you, Henning, and please welcome.
Well, welcome also. Thank you, Nadine, for having me and for introducing me. It's good to be here. I'll share my screen here real quick so you can actually see my presentation. Okay, maybe one of you or a couple of you can give me a thumbs up.
It's working perfectly. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Nadine.
Oh, good. You're welcome.
It's always good to hear that you can see that. Now, I called my talk looking forward, looking back, because that's a little bit what I did when designing this typeface. And on the other hand, it's this title was chosen a little bit before I actually did the presentation. So it's always fun to pick a name and not have the presentation ready and then see how the presentation turns out and if the title still matches. So I actually gave it a second title as well. The second title being From Custom to Retail, because the story of the typeface is actually a story of a typeface that was originally done as a custom project and then has now turned into a retail project. And so I'll give you a little bit of a background on the story, how this typeface came to be. A couple of years ago, we were contacted, and when I say we, then that's Character Type, that's the little foundry I founded almost 4 years ago now, 3.5 about. And we were contacted by a corporation called Bausparkasse Schwäbisch Hall. And we did this project in cooperation with Strichpunkt. Strichpunkt is a German design agency, brilliant, large corporate design agency sitting in Stuttgart and Berlin. So we approached this project together. Bausparkasse is one of those German words where you will have a really hard problem translating it, and we'll come across a couple of those in my presentation. I've looked it up. In the American English, it's supposed to be a savings and loan association. And in the British English, it's called a building society. So basically what they do is they finance your house when you do want to buy a house and you don't have the money in cash. So if you need to lend some money, you might go to them and work with them. And they have this really iconic design with these 4 bricks. That's their logo. And they have this very iconic slogan of "Diese Steine können Sie bauen." It refers to those bricks. Anyway, that's just to give you a little bit of a look of what that company is like and what it is. So Strichpunkt did all the strategic work, and they did all the brand history and the story and the values and tonalities, field analysis, differentiators, USPs, and so on and so forth. So I guess you know all these lingo terms. And I guess to not bother you too long with this, I guess there were 2 essential words that came out of all this strategic stuff. And those words were Heimat and Digital. So again, another German word that is really hard to translate. I guess if you want to translate it really quick, then you would call it home. But Heimat is more than that. Let me see. Oops, that was too quick. Let me see. There's a couple of... Oh, okay. No, that wasn't too quick. Well, actually, if you look into translation forums and everything, there's endless pages about how to translate this word. So here's a quick translation. You could call it home. You could call it habitat, homeland. It's also a part of me or of everyone else as well. It's a very personal thing. It could be your birthplace. It's also a native place. It's also a safe feeling. So it's all these things in one word. We're really good in Germany to have such words that no one else has in the world and where you can't really translate it. Anyway, but all these concepts and things put into one word. And so it's kind of also a feeling of the past or of the now, but there's a lot of past in Heimat. So that's the looking back from my initial title. And when we do look at different homes, at places we live in, and especially at our time modern homes, we might find a lot of the things from the past in there. I guess vintage and nostalgic things bring a lot of warmth. These pictures are just random images from the 50s. It's some Maurizio Succi's interior designs, and but I guess a lot of that warmth and a lot of that nostalgic feel, all of us would like to have in our home. We want to have some new stuff, but we also want to have those old things because they remind us of things, because those memories come back when we have these things with a little bit of a pattern around us. So when we were deciding on which direction this typeface, this Sans typeface should go, we said, well, we need to look in the past if we want to reference some of that vintage, of that older feelings. We just can't be too modern. So we said, okay, it's got to be a grotesque. And being from Hamburg, I suggested to look into the Gensch and Heise specimens, not for a revival or not because we are, this is the one actually, it's a beautiful old specimen book. And this is Lapidar. It's a typeface from around the turn of the century, from the 18th, well, no, from the 19th to the 20th century. And we didn't try to do a revival. It's not even a starting point for a revival, but just the aesthetics of some of these letters that we were looking at. And so I'll show you some of the letters that we designed that then later came about. You can imagine or see the references when you look at the A and the C, the S, the E, these very central letters to lowercase. There's some of those aesthetics in there, some of that warmth. Also the roundness of those N's and M's and U's. Also that double-storied G with the horizontal bars in the bottom bowl. Those are all taken from that period. And I'm not saying it's just that typeface, Lapidar, that we took it from, but it's that type of inspiration that we're looking for. We're doing something new, but we're wanting to reference those times. And another thing that we try to put in to bring that warmth into it and that human feeling is that and that's nothing from history, that's just something that we decided to do to bring a little bit of that warmth into this, these diagonals that we made all a little bit bent, just so slightly that you can say, well, that's a little bit of a human touch in there. It's a little bit of that bent. And you can find that in all these diagonals in letters like A and K and X and Y and all that. So those were the thoughts that came into play when we were looking at the Heimat part of it. And then we had to figure out how to marry that together with something digital. And now you have these big words like digital, and then you look into the history of digital and you find all kinds of crazy stuff. So you could say the whole internet is digital. So what's the look of digital? There's none that where you can really put your finger onto it. But what we decided to do is that we would try to find some of that the technical things of it. And when you put some stretching elements into otherwise quite round letters, you gain some of the Dean feeling, or I'll call it a Dean-esque feeling. So it's a little bit of a technical side that we put into all of these very round letters. And maybe a bit of a nerdy observation here is when we were designing from the lightweight towards the very heavy weights. It's interesting how these little elements, while they are wider on the outside on the light parts and thinner on the inner parts, that mechanism completely turns around when you go into the very bold weights and into the very heavy weights. But yeah, that's just an interesting observation that I hadn't come across myself before. Another one of those little technical elements are these 90-degree endings of Q and T and J and F. Again, these are also, you can also find those and those early specimens that we had been looking at, and so it's these two things that we marry together. In the end, we created 4 weights, 8 styles altogether with accompanying italics, and it's just a really quick film that I hope will play. Here you go. Just to give you a real quick insight of what the corporate design, including the typeface, then later looked like. And it's just a really short version of a longer one that has been done by Strichpunkt as well. So this will finish up the first part of my talk. The first part that looks at the custom part of the typeface. So now we'll be looking at from custom to retail. The interesting thing about this custom job, while some of our custom jobs are very exclusive, so no one else will ever be able to use the typefaces that we do for our clients, some of our projects, the client says, well, for a little bit of less money, we take the non-exclusive rights. So this gives us the opportunity to later on turn these custom typefaces into retail typefaces. And so we have these typefaces, and then the question is, what do we do with it? Do we just publish them as they are, or do we do something more with it? And in this case, we decided, oh, let's look at the weights first. So we extended the range of the weights from formerly being light to black, and then in the new typeface, we have it from thin to ultra. And the nice thing about then again doing our own typeface, or turning it into our own typeface, we can also readjust the weight distribution. Just like here, you can see the Fuchs typeface, which is Fox. That's the typeface we did for the Bausparkasse Schwäbisch Hall. It's a little bit heavier in the regular weight, and the one that we turned it into, the Tragic Grotesk, is a little bit lighter. So there are these opportunities to again readjust and to look at it, and there's not one regular weight, there's no industry standard, so fortunately we are able to play around with it ourselves. And then talking about weights, obviously we turned it into something really heavy, which was a lot of fun, because it's always a big question how to turn these regular weights. How do forms from normal bold or from a regular translate into such heavy faces and into such heavy forms? Another thing that we were able to adjust and to look at is some letter forms where we thought it'd be a lot of fun to extend the forms or change the forms a little bit. And so we created a new G without the middle bar, which is a lot of fun, and we added some bars to or an alternative version with a bar on the top for the J, and you can find those in those alternates in the stylistic sets. And when I say find it, that's a really simple task in design. That's only 4 menus into clicking into. Anyway, it's really beyond me how that is still not been solved any better in InDesign. But anyway, now you know how to find it. So you saw the J had a little bit of a bar on top, so we created all these I's and L's and J's with the little serifs on top, and also some alternative versions for A and G. And we decided for a little bit of a controversial name. Nadine has already said that she doesn't like the name, which is fine to me. I love it. I guess there's a lot of tragedy in the world. There's tragedy in everybody's life. So yeah, I decided it's a good name. It's memorable. Also, it was easy to make a nice little set of icons along with it. So we did some playing around with it with a sad eye and some sad faces, a little coffin, things like that. And we extended the letter set. We put some small caps into it. And obviously there are some circled numbers and all the nifty things. So you have about 700 glyphs in this font. And here's another overview of all the weights and italics, which aren't true italics. You can see there's slanted forms with the A, slanted A in there, the slanted G and all that. But again, we liked the aesthetics of it. And if somebody's out there who doesn't like those, again, we have those in the stylistic sets. We have the true italic forms in there. So thanks for your for listening. Thanks for your attention, and thanks a ton to I Love Typography for hosting the Fashion Week, and thanks for having us and giving us the chance to introduce our new typeface to the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And yeah, no, you know why I didn't like my concern with the name, because I really love how that those curved diagonals bring that sense of humanity into it. It's almost like the typeface is winking at you. It has charm, you know. It's not so cold or neutral as you would see in typical neo-grotesques. It has its own personality, it has a charm, there is warmth, there is that human reference, and there's a bit of joie de vivre in it, funnily enough. Maybe because of those rounded curves, I don't know, but it's a happy typeface. So yes, there's a lot of tragedy in the world, but maybe this is how to combat it.
Yes,
but it is definitely memorable as a name. So so that's yeah. But yeah, there is that sense of there's something happy about it, you know, in the charm of the curves, the heavy weights, the drawing, the contrast of the outlines. Anyways. So
thank you. I agree, and I guess that was one of the points when we had the initial brief with the with the company to not make it too serious, to make it warm and Heimat. That was the briefing, So I hope we hit that on the spot. And yes, the name, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about names, and that stuck with me, and it worked so well with the name Grotesk and in combination of that. So I see in the frequent and in the questions here, I see one of the questions is also why tragic. I guess that's all the explanation there is. So sorry.
But maybe it could be like tragic with a wink, like it's a bit it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, so not really
don't take it too serious. I mean, you don't only have to use it for funeral leaflets, so
no, or like a name, the how do you call the inscriptions on the
tombstones? Tombstone inscriptions, you can use it for that as well. Use it for anything, whatever. Okay.
No, I really like what it looks like in the heavier weights. So if anyone has any questions, we do have a few minutes. Otherwise, then I start with my questions. So we've already, Robert has already asked some why. So we've already answered. And so when it comes to that sense of humanity in the typeface, maybe you could expand a little bit more on that, because it's a theme that, like, this is how I started with my presentation at the beginning of Fashion Week, with that bringing back that human into the design, and it's been a thread that we've seen in different talks as well, that there is that that search. It's a quest to find that humanity, sometimes in a geometric sans serif, in this case in a grotesque. What are your thoughts on something like that? Where do you see this trend going? Do you what prompted this wish in you? And where do you feel? Do you feel that the grotesque or the neo-grotesque I can't speak, neo-grotesques of previous decades, the ones that feel a little bit more cold and neutral? Do you feel that maybe we have gone past that point? Like, what are your thoughts? Maybe if you just expand a little bit on what is your thinking around that topic?
Well, my observation has been that we are moving away from the era of neutral corporate typography. When I was going to school or to university, there was a lot of discussion about neutrality in typefaces. And I remember the Helvetica film being put out and all this notion about neutrality about it and all these things. And that discussion has completely died, in my observation at least. There's no aim, or brands don't aim for that neutrality anymore. And I don't think neutrality is a value in branding. So when you look at typefaces, why would you want neutrality? You might want to have cleanliness. You might want to have, you know, very quiet typefaces, and that might go along with your brand. But I don't think you need neutrality. And so in the last few years, we've seen a lot of the geometric, you know, the Google, the Dropbox, no, Dropbox actually not, they're not using a geometric typeface, but, you know, all the geometric typefaces that are out there. And that's also one of those where, again, moving to a place where we consider these geometric typefaces almost neutral. I'm exaggerating here, but seeing too much of one thing makes it, the German word is egal, makes it,
yeah, it
becomes
equal.
Everything, it's all, everything is equal. So I think, and that's my observation with a lot of brands, they're all moving towards something where they can put some values, some real humanity, some real things into their typography, because brands notice that they can get more out of type than just something that flows along with the rest of it. So
yeah, you know what it reminds me of? A few years back, like many years back, maybe 10 years, I don't know when the hipster sort of trend started, but remember where at first it was maybe a few people who had, you know, the cut which was shorter here, and then there was the very nicely trimmed beard, the plaid shirt, and then the tight jeans. And then suddenly everyone was like that. And that was like, in the attempt to be hipster, they became a photocopy of one another. It almost feels like there was a similar kind of trend at some point, where it's exactly as you say, if you are trying to be alternative, or if you're trying to be something, but then everyone becomes that something, then what you're trying to say gets drowned in all the copies of it. So we need to go and look for character. We need to look for uniqueness. We need to look for differentiators. You know, in some cases, some brands might want to be, you know, following a trend. It depends where they are in competition with their, you know, competitors within their market. But there is space, surely, to differentiate and have an identity and be different and take some risks. And anyways, we have a quick question from Dominic. Were there any ideas you were tempted to reintroduce when you went into the retail version of the typeface?
Actually, there was, when we, in the first round, there were actually two typefaces, or two typeface sketches, I should call, really rough sketches, two directions. After some branding workshops, you know, we said, okay, we got an idea what you might want, what you might need. So we did two sketches, and one was much more humanistic, with, you know, from the contrast and all that. And that was rejected in that round, but we didn't introduce those ideas into this typeface again. So yes, there were other ideas that we had, and there's another sketch somewhere in the drawer now, but we didn't reintroduce it into the retail version. We just refined a couple of things, and you know, you look at a typeface 6 months after you've drawn it, you always find stuff that you might want to change. So it's rather those type of things that we did, without saying that the version that we did for the Bausparkasse was any bad, but it's, you know, you look at something and you're like, maybe this works as well. So that's the type of changes we did.
Excellent, thank you. And then a question from Alexandra. How long did it take to develop the typeface?
Well, the original one for our client was done within 4 months, I believe. So it's quite a speedy process. It's usually when you work with agencies, they are also developing the corporate design. So they already have a timetable, and then there's a goal a date to work towards to, and that everybody wants to be finished. And so you need to work hand in hand with the agency. And there's so that was quite a speedy project. The retail version, obviously, we had some more time, and we've been putting a few more months into that to extend it. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so one last quick question, because we have to go to the next talk. This is from Gotham. Does regional letter forms and spacing influence the English typeface positively or negatively?
Well, actually, we don't differentiate between regional or non-regional letter forms. It's a full alphabet, and so we define with the client or for ourselves what does the glyph set look like, how many Latin languages do we want to cover, and then every letter needs to work with every other letter. So it's we don't differentiate. We don't look at it like that, whether we want to target an English or a German audience. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Good. There are other questions, but we really need to go to the next one. So sorry about that. But yeah, no, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the gorgeous new typeface. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for everyone who is joining us today or watching this later. Just a reminder, someone who is anonymous reminded, and it's a good thing to remind everybody else, that we have emailed a new link for the talk that comes after this, just because of the same issue we had on the Wednesday. So there is a new link, so please check your email for that. But otherwise, Henning, it's been great chatting with you. Thank you so much. And hopefully we see you again soon at some point. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone. Thank you.
It's been great fun. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.